going.
Our prepared speaker today is David Marinac, and David has been in the packaging business for nearly 30 years. Along the way, he has met some interesting characters who have not only shaped his professional life, but his personal life as well. And two weeks ago, David gave this speech, and he received feedback. So as part of his process, today he will be applying that feedback he learned and gave in this presentation, which he will give again. And the time of the presentation is 5 to 7 minutes, with the green light going on 5 minutes, the amber light at 6, and the red light at 7 minutes. And again, the speech title is The Power of Packaging from Bubble Wrap to Booman. Help me welcome David to the lectern.
So, what do you do for a living? We've all been asked that from various times, and it's one of those, at least for me, it was always one of those uncomfortable sort of like, yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do with this. But being that I'm in the packaging business, and being that packaging is a very broad category, I mean, you've got everything from returnable packaging to disposable packaging, you've got soup to nuts. I figured I'd share a little bit about what I've done over my career, and I also figured I'd share about somebody who had a profound impact on my life. So again, from bubble wrap to the Booman, the power of packaging. Now, back in the early days of my career, I would get up and I would drive to industrial parks, or actually try to find a bank of phones near industrial parks. This is pre-internet, pre-cell phones. Make phone calls and see if I could find anybody that would be willing to at least hear about me selling packaging. I sold the commodity stuff back in those days. Bubble wrap, boxes, tape, whatever it was. Now, you're not gonna make a whole lot of money in that business, but I had a pretty good shtick. I would, instead of calling on or even going through the front door, I'd stick my handy dandy safety goggles on and go around the back door and just walk in like I knew somebody there, and I usually had pretty good success. But I learned pretty early on, after about a year of this, that I wasn't gonna make a lot of money. I needed to get better at penetrating an account, finding some pain, if there was pain there, and then trying to find an alternative or some sort of a solution for that particular pain. Which leads me to the next part. Does anyone remember or know what these are? This is known as the Thomas Register. This was like the encyclopedia back in my day for manufacturers. So if I found a company that had a problem, I would come back to the office, leaf through here, again, pre-internet, leaf through here, try to find some solutions, and then come up with some sort of an alternative, at least something I can offer them. Which, again, brings me to this knucklehead. And I say that endearingly because he's a really good guy. This is Tim Boothby. Tim was interesting was I found out as I went through my kind of career evolution that I wasn't going to be able to make big money in the packaging industry unless I solved someone's problems. And my shtick of trying to go through the back door with my safety goggles on wasn't gonna work at these bigger companies. Tim was a plant engineer at Kraft Made Cabinetry down in Middlefield. Now, Kraft Made at the time was really converging in this fact that we had Home Depot and Lowe's and Menards really coming on strong, and they began to offer, or they had the computer program that allowed someone to walk in off the street and then be able to design a full kitchen right there on a computer. Now, Tim, what was interesting about him was I met him the first time and I see this picture on his desk and I'm like, what in the world is this? And Tim, before he got his college degree, was a comedian. In the hardcore days of comedy, he would actually go to Hilarities or the Improv on these weeknights and literally tell jokes while he had the green light until you get the red light. Now, if you last a certain amount of time, you get paid. If you don't, you're done. So that's a tough way to make a living, and that's what he did, and that's where I connected with him. So we became buddies, and we started chatting, and he threw me a bone, if you will, in the packaging, terminology where he said, hey, if you could help me with this particular project, I think I might be able to get you in the door here at CraftMate. Now again, CraftMate had all these orders coming in from these retailers, and they needed to be able to store various components of these cabinets in these carts, and at least move them throughout their factory for assembly. So the cabinet doors are made on one side of the factory, you had the components on another side of the factory, and they'd bring all these things together. But moving these things was very hard, it was heavy, these wood containers or carts that they had were abrasive, they needed to come up with a solution. So I went back to my green books, my encyclopedias, and I tried to find some alternative to this wood. Now, I found a company in Erie, Pennsylvania that manufactures something called plastic corrugated. Plastic corrugated is very heavy duty, but lightweight. You can screw it, you can bolt it, you can laminate it, you can bend it. It was one of these things I'm thinking, heck, maybe we can find a way to replace the wood, save a lot of the weight, and if it was cost effective, could we come up with some solution? Then in turn, we found a welder that created a very cool, very easy to push cart that we assembled plastic corrugated to this. And now what we ended up with was a very robust cart that could hold as much, if not more weight than it currently had, but it was lightweight, very easy for them to push throughout their factory. And it became one of those unbelievable grand slam projects in my career where I thought I was going to sell on one cart, and then it became 2 cart, and it became 2,500 carts that I've kind of sold them over my career there. And these things are not cheap. These things are in that $1,000, $2,000 range when you look at all the different components to this. So my point with telling you the story about from bubble wrap to the Booman is you just never know who you're going to run into, who could open the door for some particular grand slam project, some particular piece of business that I never in a million years would have thought I had. So, and this is my buddy, Tim Boothby, to this day. He's a stand-up comedian at Junior's Last Laugh and others throughout the area. Thank you.